This is Exodus chapter 16. Exodus chapter 14, verse 15 through Exodus chapter 16, verse 3. I read the first 17 verses, then everybody can come after me and read a few verses, 10 verses. Actually, I'll just read 16 so you can start off with a good 30. This is 14 and 15. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, Why are you crying out to me? Salakia, chapter verse 15. Then Yahweh said to Moses, Why are you crying out to me? Speak to the sons of Israel and say, and let them break camp. And you raise your rod and stretch out your hand over the sea and break it apart. And let the sons of Yasharallah enter into the midst of the sea on what was dry. And look, I will harden the heart of Pharaoh and all the Egyptians, and I will enter in after them, and I will be glorified in Pharaoh and in all his army, and in his chariots and in his horses, and all the Egyptians shall know that I am Yahweh. For I am being glorified in Pharaoh and in his chariots and his horses. Then the angel of Yahweh, who was going before the camp of the sons of Israel, rose up and went behind. Now the pillar of cloud that rose up from before them and stood behind them, and it went in between the camp of the Egyptians and between the camp of Yasharallah, and there was darkness and gloom, and the night elapsed, and they did not mix one with another during the whole night. But Moses stretched out the hand over the sea, and Yahweh drew off the sea by a strong south wind during the whole night, and he made the sea dry, and the water was divided, and the sons of Israel entered into the midst of the sea on the dry ground, and the water became a wall for them on the right and the wall on the left. And then the Egyptians pursued, and all the cavalry of Pharaoh and the chariots and the riders went in after them in the midst of the sea. And it happened in the early morning watch that Yahweh looked at the camp of the Egyptians and the pillar of fire and cloud, and he threw the camp of the Egyptians into disarray, and he bound together the axles of their chariots and led them violently. And the Egyptians said, Let us flee from Yasharallah, for Yahweh fights the Egyptians for them. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, Stretch out your hand over the sea, and let the water return and cover up the Egyptians, both the chariots and the riders. So Moses stretched out the hand over the sea, and the water returned near day to its place. Now the Egyptians fled under the water, and Yahweh shook off the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And when the water had returned, it covered the chariots and the riders and all the host of Pharaoh that had entered after them into the sea. Not one of them remained, but the sons of Yasharallah went across dry ground in the midst of the sea, and the water was for them a wall on the right and a wall on the left. And Yahweh rescued Yasharallah in that day from the hand of the Egyptians. And Yasharallah saw the Egyptians dead along the shore of the sea. So Yasharallah saw the great hand which things Yahweh had done to the Egyptians. And the people feared Yahweh and trusted Elohim and Moses, his attendant. All the Yahweh said what we doing here. All right, so actually, looks like I went ahead and read 31 verses, 16 verses. So we can start 15 fresh. All right, so basically, I think one thing I wanted to point out right here was that, and it keeps emphasizing, if you return to verse 27 real quick, it says, so Moses stretched out the hand over the sea, and the water returned near day to its place, which means like during near day, meaning at near sunrise. Okay. So now we see the other part of this 15th day, because at nighttime when they left, it was called the 15th day already, which shows us that the day starts, the Hebrew day, the yom that is counted, the beginning of the count of that day, does start at night. Doesn't start when the sun goes up. When the sun goes up, that's just another expression of the day that has already started. That's what we would call in English, we call that daylight. Okay. I mean, because even in our system now, do not most countries have two definitions for the word day? Well, three actually, but two general definitions for the word day. One begins at night, and one begins in the morning. You know what I'm talking about? Well, in most countries, when it's nighttime and it's midnight, they say, "Oh, we're in a new day now." That's when the new day starts. Technical. But in our culture, when the sun goes down, we say, "Okay, now it's a new day." We don't wait until the middle of the night to say, "Okay, now the clock is going to go past." All right. And why? Because it was no longer easy to measure the light of the clock by the sun. Okay. The light of the calendar or by the sun to determine the day. So the day starts at night even now, and then the next day starts in the morning time, which is part of that, the day that started at night. So it's the same thing now. All right, so not much has actually changed. It's the same measurement system now. Okay. So that's why we see in verse 21, it says, during the whole night, right? So during the night, meaning this separation between the cloud and the gloom, all right, and the dark. Why is it emphasizing that it was dark, gloomy? Because this was under a new moon. I mean, this was under a full moon, which was a white moon. So it's emphasizing that our side had the light from the moon, and the other side just, they still had darkness. They couldn't have that light, the light from the moon. And again, it keeps telling you in verse 19, it says the nighttime. In verse 21, it says all night. Okay. And in verse 26, it says now the water came back in its place near day, meaning near daylight. But if you jump back one chapter into chapter 13, you'll see verse 3. It says, and Moses said unto the people, keep remembering this what? This day. Keep remembering this day. All right. So it says, this is a day. And if you read verse 51 of chapter 12, what does it say? And it happened on that day. Okay. It says it happens on that day. Okay. Now, if we read in verse 40 again, it says, and it happened after 430 years, all the host of Yahweh went out from the land of Egypt during what? During the night. So here we see that the night is part of the period that the scriptures, the Torah, does call the day. Okay. And we know that it happened at nighttime. All right, so this is all we want to point out, that when you read the Torah, a lot of the doctrines that people kind of get confused, those doctrines are kind of cleared up inside the Torah, okay? So you always want to kind of let the Torah define, what's going on, what you feel and what you think. And then you can frame your own positions around that foundation. So in chapter 15, we have 27 verses. Then we have 3 verses, which gives us a total of 30 verses. All right, so we're going to have, Ashton, you read the first 10 verses. And Mark, you read the next 10 verses. And then the last section, Zayat, I'm going to read the last 7 verses, and verses 21 and 27. And then go into chapter 16, verse 1 through 3. All right, so this is what we call the Song of Moses. Okay, that's what we call the Song of Moses.
Exodus chapter 15, verse 1. Then Moshe and the sons of Israel sang this song to Yahweh and spoke, saying, Let us sing to Yahweh, for gloriously he has glorified himself. Horse and rider he threw into the sea. Helper and defender he has become to me for deliverance. This is my Elohai, and I will glorify him. My father's Elohai, and I will exalt him. Yahweh, when he shatters wars, Yahweh is his name. The chariots of Pharaoh and his host he threw into the sea. Choice riders, third-ranked officers, he drowned in the reed sea. With open sea he covered them. They sank down to the deep like a stone. Your right hand, O Yahweh, has been glorified in power. Your right hand, O Yahweh, crushed enemies. And in the abundance of thy glory, you shattered the adversaries. You sent your anger, it consumed them like stubble. And through the breath of your wrath, the waters separated. The waters were congealed like a wall. The waves were congealed in the midst of the sea. The enemy said, In pursuit I will overtake. I will divide spoils. I will satisfy my soul. I will destroy with my dagger. My hand shall dominate. You sent your breath. The sea covered them. They sank like lead in violent water.
Yeah, it's important to emphasize that Yahweh isn't, he's not a psychopath. It's just that when you put yourself in a position to be out of order with not just the universe, but with the creator of the universe, then most times there will be some kind of repercussion. Whether it's immediate or whether it's delayed, it does come. Because remember, some other people were with us during our exit, what's called the Exodus now. Other people were with us from other nations. So it's not as if he just didn't have any concern or love or compassion for the other nations. It's just that love, compassion, and concern was demonstrated by allowing them a way of escape from the judgment that they had already been warned was gonna come. Anything you want to say? Okay, so and again, this is a song. Okay. And next reading, verse 11 through 20.
Exodus chapter 15, verse 11. Who is like you among the gods, O Yahweh? Who is like you, glorified among holy ones, awesome in glorious deeds, doing wonders? You extended your right hand, the earth swallowed them. You led by your righteous people. You led by your righteousness this people of yours whom you redeemed. You summoned your power into your holy abode. Nations heard and became angry. Pangs seized those dwelling among the Philistine. The leaders of Edom made haste, and rulers of the Moabites, trembling, seized them. All those inhabiting Canaan melted away. May fear and trembling fall upon them. By the greatness of your arm, let them be turned into stone, until your people should pass by, O Yahweh, until this people of yours, whom you acquired, should pass by. Lead them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, in your prepared dwelling place that you made, O Yahweh, a holy precinct, O Yahweh, that your hands prepared. Yahweh, ruling forever and ever and beyond. Because the cavalry of Pharaoh, together with chariots and riders, went into the sea. Yahweh also brought the water of the sea upon them, but the sons of Israel walked through dry land.
So when you read about this dry land of the sea, the soil became dry, and grass grew from the seabed. All right, grass grew, and it was dry, so it wasn't just like a muddy marsh. All right, they walked through on dry land, but not only dry land, but it was also grass that was growing too. Okay, and also we see that the other nations knew what was happening at the time it happened. All right, and they were fearful. All right, so oftentimes do you see spiritual interventions for our people? Okay, spiritual interventions for our people, especially and particularly over here in the Western Hemisphere, in America specifically. Okay, you see spiritual intervention. All right, go ahead.
But the sons of Israel walked through dry land in the midst of the sea. Then Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took the tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with tambourines and dances. And Miriam took their lead, sang, "Let us sing to Yahweh, for gloriously."
Yeah, it's supposed to be to 20. I'll go ahead and finish it.
Sang, "Let us sing to Yahweh, for gloriously he has glorified himself. Horse and rider he threw into the sea."
Okay. So this pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. Okay. Any response, commentary?
Just recounting or singing about what happened when they crossed through the sea, how Yahweh made them able to cross through the sea safely.
Go to the old audio call. Press the button. And once people get on.
It's pretty much what I got.
So look into that. Okay. Thanks, Maria. So now we see that Miriam is being called a prophetess. All right, which is one who tells what the future is. Prophetess is not just the person that can tell you, explain the Bible to you. It's an actual person. All right. Isaiah, then let's come next, please.
Then Moshe removed the sons of Rishala from the Red Sea, the Reed Sea, and led them into the wilderness of Shur. And they were journeying for 3 days in the wilderness and were not finding water to drink. And they came to Merah and could not drink water from Merah, for it was bitter. Therefore, the name of that place was called Bitterness. And the people were complaining against Moshe, saying, "What shall we drink?" Then Moshe cried to Yahweh, and Yahweh showed him wood, and he threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. There he set for him statutes and judgments, and there he tested them. And he said, "If you, by paying attention, listen to the voice of Yahweh, your Elohim, and do before him pleasing things, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, every disease which I brought upon you, the Egyptians, I will not bring upon you. For I am Yahweh who heals you." And they came to Elim, and 12 springs and 7 of water, and 70 date palm trunks were there, and they camped there by the waters. Kashrad by Yahweh, no Shem, no Shemeh. All Yahweh said they were doing here. So the people were complaining that the water was bitter, and then Yahweh showed Moses, a piece of wood, and he put the wood in the water, and the water was sweet. And they set out from Elim, and the entire congregation of the sons of Rishah came to the wilderness of Sin, which was between Elim and between Sinna. And on the 15th day in the 2nd month, after they had gone out from the land of Egypt, the entire congregation of the sons of Rishah was complaining against Moshe and Aharon. And the sons of Rishah said to them, "If only we had died struck by Yahweh in the land of Egypt, when we sat at the cauldrons of meat and were eating bread to the full, because you led us out wilderness to kill all this congregation by famine." That's the end of the reading. The next reading, the psalm is going to be Psalm 53, 1 through 7.
Left, finished. Now here in chapter 16, you see all of us left out of the children of Israel. We stayed there for a month. A month has just elapsed, if you didn't notice. It says the 15th day in the 2nd month. All right. After we had gone out of Egypt, the entire congregation started to complain against Moses. So we'll pick up from there, next week. So it's ironic that you end the chapter with what was happening with Yahweh and Israel, and praising him and thanking him for delivering us. And then the next chapter picks up with us complaining. Let's read the Psalms. Read the Psalms. It's on the table right there. So Psalm chapter 53 in the Hebrew and English Bibles, and 52 in the Greek Bibles.
Psalm 53, verse 1. For the end among hymns of understanding by David, when the Ziphites came and said to Saul, Look, is not David hidden with us? O Alahiah, in
Wait,
your...
hold on. Call it again.
Psalms 53.
What's it saying here?
Psalms 53, verse 1 through 7.
Alright, so in y'all Bible, it's in Psalm 53, and his Bible was 52, right?
This is 53. Just 53.
For the Psalm, This is 1 through 7, maybe 52. When it changes to chapter 10. Just where it changes. Because the King James and the Hebrew divide this into 2 chapters. But this doesn't do it. So it's going to be 9 and 10, and 11 and 12. So it jumps ahead in that. Because y'all 53 starts at, and your name saved me or something to that effect, right? What's this on the paper? Again?
53.
Yeah, 52. 1 through 7, right?
Con.
How many verses? 7 verses, right?
Con.
Okay.
Psalms chapter 52, verse 1. For the end in the name of Melech, a psalm of understanding by David.
So 52, you gotta keep reiterating the fact that because people don't understand what's going on. When you say 52, we jumping back from 52 and 53, you have to explain to them that it's 52 in your book, but it's gonna be 53 in the other regular English and the regular Hebrew-based Bibles. All right. Go ahead. So 53 in your regular King James Bible, or your Reina Valera, or even in your Hebrew Bibles. It's chapter 53. Let me explain real quick. Everybody go to Psalms chapter 9, except for you. In the regular King James Bible, go to Psalms chapter 9. I'll show you why it's like that. So everybody, Psalms chapter 9. Most of y'all have Psalms chapter 9, and then and it stops at verse 20 to 21, right? Then you have Psalms chapter 10 that starts with, "Why, O Lord, do you stand afar off?" Right? Well, they divided that long chapter into 2 chapters. Originally, it was one chapter that was like 39 verses long. So they decided to kind of cut it off round about verse 21. But in the original format of it, the oldest format of it, we have 1 chapter. So now, where we are in chapter 9, your Bible, in the middle of chapter 9, said, well, we're going to go to chapter 10 now. So by the time we get to our chapter 10 in the oldest Bibles, now you're in chapter 11. So now we get to chapter 11, your Bible says chapter 12. Everybody follow now? So that's where the division took place. So now when he gets into chapter 52, your King James or your Hebrew is going to say 53. Everybody got me now? So they broke, when they did it in the Hebrew, they said, we're going to, not even in Hebrew, but the Masoretic, they said, well, we're going to have to divide this chapter differently now, this long chapter. Maybe they didn't want to jump into 39 verses that soon into the book. All right, so he's reading chapter 52, 52 in the Greek, and 53 in the Hebrew and English. That's probably a better way to put it. Go ahead.
For the end, in the name of Maaleth, a psalm of understanding by David. The foolish said in his heart, there is no Alahaya. They were corrupted and were abhorred in evil acts. There is no one who is doing good. Alahaya looked out upon the sons of humans from the heavens.
The sons of men, go ahead.
To see if there is one who understands or one who seeks out Alahaya. All turned away. Together they became useless. There is not one doing good, there is not even one. Will not all the ones who work lawlessness know? Those who eat my people, as the eating of bread, did not call upon Yahweh. There they feared a fear where there was no fear, because Alahaya scattered abroad the bones of the people pleasers. They were put to shame because Alahaya scorned them. Who will give the salvation of Yasharallah from Zion? When Yahweh turns back the captives from his people, Jacob will rejoice exceedingly, and Israel will be cheerful.
So turning back to captivity is what we read about, that he's bringing the children that were in captivity out of slavery. And we see that Yahweh is going to scatter the bones of the men pleasers. These are the people that were driving those chariots that knew what Yahweh did in Egypt, but they still decided to follow the chariots to chase down the children of Israel. Okay? So they were trying to please man as opposed to pleasing what Yahweh said, which is, let my people go, send my people out, bring your animals in, serve me and worship me. Okay? So this is kind of a narration of what we read about in Exodus chapter 14, 15, and 3. 14, 15, and 16. Let's go back to, I'm going to go back to chapter 15 real quick and read something so we can understand. Okay. It's Exodus chapter 15 real quick, verse 3. It says, Yahweh, when he shatters wars, Yahweh is his name. So Yahweh, there's no really, a war against him. He shatters wars. All right, meaning he is the one that destroys even wars. Okay. Let's go into the prophets. Any commentary on that?
Just that the people who turned away or didn't seek Yahweh were scorned or punished and rejected by Yahweh, and those who abused his people or mistreated them were also put down, and like it says, they became useless. They lost their power and were left where they were taken away from their position and replaced by Israel. That's it.
This is what we see happening in the land of Canaan. They didn't serve Yahweh. They knew of Yahweh through Abraham, but they didn't serve Yahweh. Right, so all of our enemies, everyone that does us wickedly, and that's what I mean when I say enemy. When I say enemy, I don't mean people that belong to this particular group of people, but they just sitting back minding their own business. That's not what I mean. When I say enemy, I mean people who in their heart and with their hands try to do things against our people, make themselves like adversaries against us, like enemies against us, doing things that are not good for us, doing things that are hurtful and harmful to us, things that would cause us sadness, pain, things like that. So that's what I mean when I say, you know, these are our enemies. So all of the people that have stood against Yahweh, stood against his chosen, which is us, there will be a day of reckoning. All right, so let's go to the Psalms, please, the prophets. What's the prophet from like this one or the next or the less?
I'm not sure.
Was it Isaiah something?
Isaiah chapter 65, verse 24, 66, verse 2.
That's 65:24.
Okay. Isaiah chapter 65, verse 24. And it shall be that before they have cried out, I will listen to them.
So I always see that when we get in a crisis type of situation, once we start to walk on the right path, then Yahweh will already know the direction that we need to go for safety before we know. Like an instinctive guidance. Just like how some animals, you have certain kinds of turtles that are born that know the way back to the sea to go and to know how to mate, even though they've never been there before. Or certain birds know what flight path to travel to avoid strong winds coming to push them and to avoid going someplace that's going to be worse than where they're leaving from by their natural instinct. All right. What in our case, this what people call the natural instinct is Yahweh pushing us or moving us into a direction of safety, and it can happen, a few ways. Sometimes it happens through animals that can sense danger, that can sense where you shouldn't go better than you can, and sometimes it's just strictly from Yahweh sending angels to move into your mind or to move into other people's minds to push you in the direction that you should go for safety. Go ahead.
While they are yet speaking, I will say, what is it? Then wolves and lambs shall feed together, and a lion shall eat straw like an ox. But a snake shall eat earth as bread. They shall not do wrong or destroy on my holy mountain, says Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh.
Well, let me say this real quick. This snake that we see right here is likely representative, again, of the adversarial posture that nations have taken against us. All of the slave traders, all of the bankers, all of the lenders, okay? All of the employers, all of the doctors, all of the people that have conspired for the past over 400 years against us in Saudi Arabia, in India, in France, in England, in the northern states, the southern states, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. All of these places people have conspired against the 12 tribes of Israel, whether it's through that demon, that red, pale-faced demon called Margaret Sanger, with the eugenics program to set up abortion clinics, to murder Black, Native American, and Latino children. And yes, make no mistake about it, when they were putting together abortion clinic programs they specifically targeted only the 12 tribes of Israel. They didn't target the Hindus or the Chinese or Japanese. They specifically said Mexicans, Indians, and blacks. And you know, for them, they call everybody Mexican. All right, they call everybody. They call everybody Mexican. All right. So yeah, so this was something very deliberate against our people, and it's still happening today. That's why you have to be aware about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because what will end up happening is that you'll end up being a tool that's being used by our enemies, and with the top enemy and everything being headed by the devil, by Satan himself. He's telling our people, you know, things that he wants them to do that will cause the destruction of our people, that will cause the downfall, the disunity of our people. Okay? He's saying, destroy your brains, destroy your emotions, desensitize your love for each other by putting this substance in your body, or watching this, or listening to this. Right? This is all, these things are all spiritual. All right? So that's what we see now, that it says that the snake shall eat earth as bread. Did you notice that? That it talks about the wolf, and it talks about the lambs, and it talks about the lions, and it talks about the ox. All right? And these all represent, you know, different aspects of animals, as well as different expressions of human characteristics also. All right? But notice that the serpent in this verse, the snake, is still going to be eating earth. And that goes into Isaiah 14, when it says that, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? Which Lucifer means the light bearer, representing the king of Babylon, all right, at that time period of Isaiah's prophecy. Okay? So the wolf and the lamb shall feed together, which means that those entities that seem to be in natural opposition of each other will get along peacefully. That's all that means. Everything's gonna be peaceful and harmonious on the earth. And you can start to shift your mind and your spirit in that direction now. All right? Because you, as a lion, you can relax with a sheep now. But if that sheep, you know, tries to poke his horns at you, that's why you got those big teeth. That's why you still got those claws. But you don't gotta go around growling at everybody and showing everybody your fangs and your big claws. Okay? So it says that that before we cry out to Yahweh, that he's going to be able to understand what we need. And that's just that harmonious spiritual posture, that harmonious spiritual position that we'll be in, so that everything is in unity. Okay? Everything's in unity. And in Jerusalem, everybody's fighting for Jerusalem now, right? You got the white Arabs, the black brown Arabs, the white European Jews, the brown Ethiopian Jews, which is our people. You got the Christians, white Christians, Greek, African American Christians. They all want a piece of Jerusalem. But Jerusalem is our city. All right, Jerusalem is going to be our city. We're going to possess it again. Okay, we're going to possess Jerusalem again. So that's when he's talking, when he says, on my holy mountain, that's going into Mount Zion. Mount Zion is a place, and Mount Zion is the people, also the people of the 12 tribes. Go ahead.
Isaiah chapter 66, verse 1. Thus says Yahweh, heaven is my throne, and the earth is the footstool of my feet.
When it says heaven is my throne, that's really saying I'm too big to be contained anywhere. The whole, what is heaven? Heaven is anywhere you look and see. Heaven is the expanse of the universe. So what Yahweh is saying is, my dominion, the seat of my dominion is everywhere. That's what he's saying. He's beyond infinity. All right, that's what that means. And the earth is my footstool. Okay? And that's going to like the, what happens if you're sitting on a footstool and you stand up? You stand up on that footstool now, right? All right, so your feet, like my feet right now on this pillow right now, that's the energy, that's the focus of my energy right now. That's the focus of my energy. So his focus in the universe is on us, on earth, and on the children of Israel on the earth. Out of all of the countless particles of energy in the universe, his focus is on the children of Israel. Go ahead.
What kind of house will you build for me? Or of what kind will the place of my rest, will be the place of my rest? For all these things my hand has made, and all these things are mine, says Yahweh. And to whom will I look, but to the one who is humble and quiet, and trembles at my words.
All right, we read that one earlier too, in Psalms. You know, meaning sometimes you gotta shut up and mind your business. You don't gotta comment and talk and say something about everything that everybody got going on. You can if you want to, but you're not gonna have time to be introspective and think and focus and to regulate and bring yourself back into spiritual harmony and balance if everything is always external. That's a distraction. Sometimes you have to be quiet and humble. Don't respond every time somebody poke at you or picks a fight. Don't mean you got to swing on them. Every time there's loudness going on, you don't have to put yourself into the middle of it. You can extract yourself from that. All right, this is what people call fasting. Fasting is not just for your body and food. Fasting is for your mental and your spiritual. Sometimes you got to just cut yourself off from everything and everybody for a time. You don't got to necessarily physically remove yourself from the equation, but again, internally, you focus on your mind, your thoughts, your feelings. You don't got to, go to a cave for 3 weeks. You can do it amongst people. And somebody said, "Man, what's wrong with you being more quiet?" And you go, "No, I'm just being humble and quiet for a minute." But I'm gonna get back to my loud, boisterous, comical joke telling self probably in about 3 days, man. So don't worry, I'll be back. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Verses 5 through 10. Hear the word of Yahweh, you who tremble at his word. Speak, our brothers, to those who hate and abominate us, so that the name of Yahweh may be glorified and seen in their joy. But those ones shall be put to shame.
Yes, that means don't be ashamed to pronounce the judgment of the Most High. Don't be ashamed to promise to speak the promise of the Most High. Okay? There's a situation, but sometimes there may be a price you got to pay for it. Be willing to pay that price. If that's what you stand on, don't be scared. And I want to say this real quick. A lot of our people, read that again. It says, speak, our brothers, to those who hate and abominate us. Those that make us an abomination and those that hate us. It says, speak to them. All right? Now, what if they tell you, well, we're not going to give you a permit to speak? You going to speak or not speak? You see, what mission are you really on? What rules are you really playing by? And what are you willing to do to show that you stand on what you stand on? It's easy in America. It's easy in America because you got protection, believe it or not, under the Constitution. Whether you're an American or whether you're a foreigner, you got protection under the Constitution. But when you go into India, you ain't got that protection. When you go to Sri Lanka, you ain't got that protection. And I understood this as I traveled to these different places. You definitely ain't got it in Turkey. You definitely ain't got it in Turkey. But you still have to say what the truth is. But you have to know how to speak, how to talk. But you're not going to know how to speak and how to talk under pressure if you haven't practiced verse 2. When it says the one who is humble and quiet. So how do you tell somebody in India that's been worshiping all these false gods all their lives that were created by the children of Elam to replace the historical narrative of their forefathers? How do you tell them that they shouldn't be doing that? Well, that has nothing to do with their history, that's a whole nother people. You tell them by telling them, hey, your ancestors worshiped a different God before these people brought you here in slavery and introduced you to their God. Now, I know you worship this God, but it's not the God of your ancestors. It's a God that was introduced and forced upon your ancestors. And all of our people worship the different gods according to where they were taken into captivity, right? If you got taken into Oman, into Saudi Arabia, you became a Muslim. If you got taken into China, you follow Confucianism or Buddhism. If you got taken into India, you became a Hindu. You got taken into America, where you became a African Methodist Episcopal or Southern Baptist or Presbyterian or Unitarian, whatever the case may be. But only the children of Israel were scattered and taken from their land with hardly anybody there. So that has to be the message when you talk to your people in these different places. This ain't what our ancestors did. All right, continue.
A voice of crying from the city, a voice from the shrine, the voice of Yahweh, rendering retribution to his adversaries. Before she who was in labor gave birth, before the pain of her pangs came, she escaped and gave birth to a male.
Mm-hmm.
Who has heard of such a thing, and who has seen thus? Did the earth give birth in one day? Was also a nation born all at once?
This is talking about us when we left Egypt. All of a sudden, we were independent and on our own. All of a sudden. We left on that 15th day of Abib, which is the 15th day of the 15th day of the new moon being in alignment with the sun inside the first constellation is called Aries. That's when we became a nation. We were slaves, and all of a sudden, bam, we became a nation. Migrating from one place in Northeast Africa. And then we went into the Arabian Peninsula. We went into the Arabian plate, tectonic plate, and then we went back across the Arabian plate, across the Jordan River, back into the African tectonic plate, into a place that they call Jericho. All this is happening in Africa and Arabia. When I say Africa and Arabia, I'm not talking, culturally, or I'm not talking just metaphorically, I'm talking literally. The earth was made, and the earth has dirt and soil. The same dirt and soil that you walk on when you're in Israel, and you go to Gaza, and you go to Egypt, and you go to Ethiopia, Sudan. It's all the same landmass. You understand what I'm saying? It's all the same landmass. All right? It's not different. And now when you cross on the east side of the Jordan River or the Dead Sea, all right, that's going to be the Arabian plate. And that plate goes all the way up around northern Israel goes into Syria and goes into eastern Turkey. You can look it up. Okay. So we left one area and we went to another part of Arabia now. Because when you cross the Red Sea, the area where we crossed that's going to be going into the Arabian Plate now. All right? Arabian Plate. It's a geologic term. It's geology. But we became a nation in one day. All right? We came out of Egypt and we became a nation that same day we came out. What does it mean? That means that we had the ability and the power to defend ourselves against our enemies. That's the biggest intrinsic difference that we have between being slaves and being free. As a slave, who controls your body? Who controls your time? Who controls your going out and your coming in? Those people that are oppressing you. But as a free man, you control your time. You control your body. You control your going out and your coming in. And the main important thing that you control, which is what we will not control until we get back into our own homeland, is our what? Space. A nation controls their space. Okay? We don't control our space right now. America controls their space. All right? Malawi controls their space. Nigeria controls their space. Canada controls their space. But we as an ethnic people, scattered throughout all nations of the earth, we don't control our space. Our space is being controlled by somebody else. Just like the North American Indians that have reservations between Southern America and Northern Mexico in the state of Coahuila. Or if you go into Saskatchewan and Northern America, they can go back and forth across those borders. But the federal government can come in when they want to, and what are they going to do to it? They can't put up a fight. You know who can put up a fight? Ukraine, when they're mad at Russia. Or Russia, when they're mad at Ukraine. America, when they got a problem with Cuba. Cuba, when they got a problem with America, they can put up a fight. So in our exile, we were divided as a nation because all of the power that we have cannot be concentrated in one area. Okay? Take the civil rights movement in America in the 1600s. I mean, the early 60s, mid 60s, the late 60s. Take that and take the Black Americans. Now mix with the Black Americans, Native Americans. And take those Native Americans and mix some Haitians. And then mix some people from Argentina, some people from Brazil. Same amount from every group. Now what do you have in your hand? You no longer have a bloody Sunday on us. You have a bloody Sunday perpetrated against those that are opposing our right to breathe and move freely. And this is why we had to be divided. This is why we had to be divided. With small forces of men, and this is our biblical heritage, with small forces and small numbers of men, we have always been able to unify and unalive and kill our enemies that wanted to take our lives. And this is why our division is so important to our enemies. This is why the music, the clothes, the jobs, the drugs are so important for our enemies to control. Because once we understand, Nat Turner was one man in one area of Virginia. Okay? Toussaint Louverture, understand this. Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Those were two Haitian men that were fundamental in fighting against the French in the 1700s and 1800s. Two men were able to inspire other African, Hebrew, Israelite men in Haiti, was able to inspire them to raise up and bankrupt one of the largest empires that the world had ever seen, the French. When you go from Louisiana all the way up to Chicago, Tennessee, Missouri, I think part of Kansas, Minnesota, Minneapolis, Wisconsin, all of that, from the Northern American by the Canada border all the way down to the Gulf Coast by Louisiana. All of that was controlled by the French. The Haitians kicked the French butt so bad, they had to sell their stake in their dreams of having a big colony in America. They had to sell that land to America when Andrew Jackson was the president, because the Levites kicked their butts so bad. Coming out of captivity, they had enough military strategic mind, they had enough discipline, they were humble and quiet enough to figure out how to launch continuous attacks against their enemies. Just like who? The Maccabees did. Same people. The Maccabees and the Haitians, the Maccabees and the Limba, the same people, same tribe. Same tribe of people, same tribe of Levi. So my point is that when this happens, when Israelite people, Black, Latino, and Native people, when they get together, somebody's gonna pay the price. And that's why it's so important for them not to have us together. Not to have us together. Because once we are together, then our enemies don't stand a chance. Because look at these little bit of numbers. Just few people suddenly saying, we're not talking about organizations that existed for hundreds of years. All right. Look at Tulsa, Oklahoma, when they burnt down those buildings between, Greenwood, Archer, and the other street. That's where Charlie Wilson, that's where they got the initials from, the Gap Band. Those three streets in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that were the boundaries of the Black Wall Street area. Burnt it up. We didn't do that in 500, 600 years. We push forward. When you give us wings, when you give our wings room to spread, our people make tremendous advances in a few decades. If that, we've always done it. And that's why it's so important for them to keep us on a low level. All right? That's why it's so important for them to constantly try to destroy us. So that serpent, at the end, that serpent is going to be still eating the dust, which means what? Our main enemy, you know who it is. Our main enemy is still going to be at the lowest state possible. And that's when you go into Isaiah chapter 14. Isaiah chapter 14 is not talking about the devil being in heaven and getting thrown from the sky and coming down to the earth and people looking at him. No, it's talking about the great white hope being hopeless. That's what it's talking about. It's talking about the so-called European, Gentile power structure being dismantled, let's put it nicely. Being dismantled. El sistema being desarmado. All right? Being dismantled. That's what it's talking about. And then we are going to go back into our position of authority and rulership and power. But we have to unify first. Unify under the laws and the moral guidelines of our people. Okay? And the principles that hold us up as a nation. I continue. Read that verse you just read again.
Verse 8. Who has,
Isaiah 6, 6, and 8.
who has heard of such a thing?
Right?
And who has seen thus?
Who has seen this?
Did the earth give birth in one day?
Go ahead.
Was also a nation born all at once?
Was a nation born at once. So now, it took generations for us to build up our background, our experiences to become a nation. But when Yahweh said, hey, y'all gonna become a nation, this is your day now. Or this is your night. Tonight's the night. All right. We had to get ready. Tonight's the night. And Yahweh said he's gonna make this a night to remember, right? Like Solomon and him said. So all these songs, when you like listen to all these songs, they relate to you and your people, your history. And a lot of them taking place at nighttime. Our greatest deliverance took place at night under the cover of darkness. Well, under the brilliance of the new moon, the full moon, happening at Passover, middle of the month. Get ready tonight, right? Gonna make this a night to remember. Then the Most High say, remember this night forever through all your generations. That's what he said. So that's an appropriate Passover song. Might need to go through and edit some of the lyrics, but go ahead. So Maria said that, who heard of that? We became at one time. Oh, by the way, not to bust y'all bubble, but Juneteenth is not the celebration of the blacks being freed from slavery. Neither was, everybody knows the Emancipation Proclamation didn't free, quote unquote, the slaves. When you listen carefully, it says all states in what? In armed rebellion. So it wasn't until years later that all of us were free. You had, when that general went down to Texas and told the people that they were free, because Texas was in armed rebellion against America, the states that were not in armed rebellion against America, which was 250,000 people, they were still slaves. And it wasn't until a little while later that a proclamation was made for them to be free from slavery also. So Juneteenth is really a false alarm. I'm not trying to bust nobody's bubble, but it's just a historical reality. You can't celebrate the freedom of your people, the physical, let's say. You can't celebrate the physical freedom of your people when 250,000 of your people are still physically in chains and in bondage, getting beat and raped and whatever other wicked thing that they could think to do against us. But there is a actual time stamp on when it happened, but we won't go into that. We won't go into that right now. All right, so we became a nation in one day. Go ahead.
Because Zion was in labor.
Zion was in labor. Go ahead.
And she gave birth to her children.
She gave birth to her children within the 12 tribes of Israel. Go ahead.
But I am the one who gave you this expectation.
Yahweh is the one that gave this freedom, this taste of life to us. Go ahead.
And you did not remember me.
And we don't remember him for what he did for us. We think, do you think the white man is the one that said, you know what, excuse my language, let me stop beating these niggas upside their head. I'm getting tired of beating niggas. I want them to walk on the same sidewalk as me and come to this. You think it was really that evil, demonic, wicked man that said, you know what, I got a love for you niggas now. Excuse my French. I got a love for you niggas now. You think he just magically decided to do that all of a sudden? No. The Most High made him do that. He made him do that. It wasn't only our effort. The Most High created the whole scene for it to happen. He didn't just come out to wake up on one like, oh man, you know what? I think I need to be free. I want to do all the work myself. I want to pick this cotton. Who invented the cotton gin? It wasn't Eli Whitney. It was a slave, person that was enslaved. He invented the cotton gin. And guess what? The cotton gin means that you can, create more cotton to be processed faster, right? And what happens if this product that you've been pushing out is now, what happens now if you've been squeezing your orange and your lemonade by hand and people gotta wait and you putting a lot of labor into it and people gotta get it and they gotta wait? Well, how much you gonna charge compared to when somebody says, hey, look, man, here's this machine, we can squeeze 20 of them at one time. In 5 minutes, we can squeeze 20, more than you can squeeze by hand in 5 minutes. So you're making more orange juice, more lemonade, right? What's gonna happen to the price and the demand? The price is gonna go down and the demand is gonna go up. More people are gonna want it. So you're gonna make more money. So that's what happened with the cotton gin. The cotton gin could take the seeds out of the cotton. And then a white man, a liar, which very rarely are those two words mutually exclusive of each other, if you know what I mean. All right. Eli Whitney came and said, I made it. He put the patent on it, but he didn't do it. So Israelite did it. All right. He wasn't free. He wasn't a citizen. All right. So he took it up north and made the cotton gin, or registered it, I should say. But my point was that it created more of a demand for people to do the work for free. You understand? People to do the work for free, created more of a demand. So now cotton is at an all-time high toward the end of slavery and after slavery. And that's why these people say, no, we can't free them. Why? Because they didn't want to do the work. They didn't want to do the labor. They didn't want to do the work, do the labor. And that's why they didn't, want to stop putting us in slavery. Because they wanted to keep doing work for people doing work for free. Okay, well, go ahead.
See, was it not I who made the woman who gives birth,
Mm-hmm.
and the one who is barren,
Mm-hmm.
said on high,
Mm-hmm.
Rejoice, O Jerusalem,
Rejoice, Jerusalem, go ahead.
and celebrate a festival in her.
Celebrate your feast in Jerusalem, right? Everybody hasn't had, the opportunity to celebrate a feast, at Jerusalem. And honestly, I can understand you. I could empathize with how you feel, because some of the people that are in Jerusalem now, they just leave a bad taste in your mouth when you're there. But if you just go there, stay out the way, mind your business, look at the buildings that we built, the buildings that we put together, the roads that we paved. All right, and you think about that we did this. No matter who's there, we did it. We put it all together. If you go underneath, you'll see more. When you go through I think it's through the Damascus Gate, nobody looks at it. If you go into the Damascus Gate, and if you go into outside the Damascus Gate there, you'll see the roads that we built in the 1st century. And if you go into the Damascus Gate and you go to your right side, and you follow that road, that takes you to a place that had the roads going underneath of it too. See, what they did, they kept building on top of maybe 4 layers now, on top of the old ruins. That's how they dig and find ruins. Because the leaves, the trees, the leaves, the trees, the bark, decomposing bodies, right? Wind erosion from mountains and stuff, it just creates more and more layers of soil. And then you got to build on top of that. That's why they dig. They say, oh, that's why archaeologists got to what? They had to dig. And the same thing happened, with us in our homeland, Israel. But Yahweh said, okay, yes, y'all celebrate these feasts there, which was centered around the temple. And the temple is destroyed now. It destroyed the temple. The Romans destroyed the temple. But we disrespected the temple. We disrespected Yahweh. We disrespected his Torah. So we got kicked out. Go ahead, Mario. It says, rejoice, O Jerusalem, and celebrate a festival in her. Go ahead.
All you who love her.
All you that love her, which goes into Psalms 137 in the English. that we're supposed to always love, respect, our homeland, Jerusalem, because it is ours. It's kind of like no matter what they do to South Africa or Nigeria or to Ethiopia, our people still love it. There's still some place there you can go to and feel like you're supposed to be there. And it's the same way where we were. For us, I think that feeling probably came certain ruins and then going into the areas that were where people were being oppressed there, where you can where the struggle is palpable. It's palpable. Like you can feel it in the air when you go to places like Jericho, when you go to places like Bethany, even when you go to places like Bethlehem, where it's a constant hustle and struggle. I got to sell this. I got to get some money off these tourists, because it's hard for me. I can't go into actual Jerusalem. And then you go up north, though, they got the black areas where the Israelites from Ethiopia are. They got their own little section of the country. Okay, they got their own little section of the country. Then you go further north, it's a little more serene and peaceful. And you can live there. We got friends that live over there. The northern part is way more chill than around Jerusalem. Way more picturesque. All right. But Yahweh is saying what? Yahweh is saying that we celebrate the feast at Jerusalem. Who?
All you who love her.
All you that love her. And we still do love Jerusalem. Go ahead.
Rejoice with joy, all you who mourn over her.
All right, mourning over her. Okay.
That's verse 10.
Meaning what?
That's the end of the reading.
Okay, that's the end of the reading. All right, so as let's come up and read what you got, Romans. All right, so you got to really understand the fact that all of this is being done now, but we came out of Egypt in order for us to be able to go back into our homeland, Jerusalem. We went through Jericho, and then once we got there, we encountered some problems. We had to straighten out that situation, but that's our homeland, and we can't go back to our own homeland now. But when we get back there, we're going to be able to protect and defend ourselves. And we're not in that position, right now to be able to protect and defend ourselves, as a people. All right, as a people. But there's measures that we can take to be okay, to be safer, to be better. And one of those is to just be together physically, to be unified in the same general vicinity as a people. So Zayathan, you're going to read where you at? Number 60.
Romans chapter 6, verse 12 to 23. Therefore, do not let sin reign in your mortal bodies, so that you obey their desires. No longer present your members to sin as instruments of unrighteousness, but present yourselves to Allahaya as those who have been brought from death to life, and present your members to Allahaya as instruments of righteousness.
So your whole body is supposed to be working out, just being righteous toward the Most High, toward the Creator. That's it. All right, go ahead.
For sin will have no dominion over you, since you are not under law, but under grace.
So what does it mean, sins have no dominion over you because you're not under law, you're under grace? If sin had dominion over you, that means that when you did wrong, you would have to pay the price that sin demanded. But since you're not under the law, you're literally not under the law right now. Because of our diaspora, because of our captivity, we're under a period of grace right now. Not to continue, breaking the rules, but to have time to keep the rules and not have to pay the penalty for breaking the rules. All right? And that's literally what they call in law. That's literally what they call a grace period. But once the grace period is over, your debt is not canceled, is it? Your debt's not canceled. When grace is over, your debt should be what? Paid in full. Everything should be all right now. Everything should be back into its proper homeostasis. Everything should be straight and in order once that grace period is over. That's what the grace is for. Not to say, oh, I'm gonna go change my gender. I'm gonna change my pronoun this year, and then next year I'm gonna have me another set of pronouns. Oh, I got a new package of pronouns in the mail. All right, so all these things are things that people are doing now, but you cannot execute the judgment upon them right now. Now, if they hurt somebody else, yeah, if they hurt somebody right now, like the thing said, it's clobbering time. Right? It's time for some kami hop in this joint, right? It's time for some Super Saiyan. But if they minding their business, they ain't hurting you, but they're hurting the environment, yeah, they need to be checked. But they say, oh, I want to do some snip and tuck and sewing, and they shouldn't do that. You feel me? They shouldn't do that. But, so just like you, when you do the wrong, your judgment don't come immediately. Go ahead, Zayata.
What then? Should we sin because we're not under law but grace? By no means. Do you not know that if you present yourselves to anyone...
Zayata, people saying they can't barely hear you or hear us. So maybe speak a little louder.
Do you not know that if you present yourselves to anyone as obedient slaves, you are slaves of the one whom you obey?
So if you obey somebody, you their servant. Okay? You are their servant. Go ahead.
Either of sin, which leads to death, or of obedience, which leads to righteousness.
You can obey sin, which leads to death, right? Or what?
Or obedience, which leads to righteousness.
Or obedience, which is what Yahweh said to do. Those are the two options. All right. Go ahead.
But thanks be to Allah that you who are slaves of sin have become obedient from the heart to the form of teaching to which you were entrusted.
Right.
And that you, having been set free from sin, have become enslaved to righteousness.
So we were slaves of sin, but now we servants unto righteousness, meaning that now we're going to serve and do the right thing just as good as we wanted to do the wrong thing. All right, go ahead.
I'm speaking in human terms because of your limitations, for just as you once presented your members as slaves to impurity and lawlessness, leading to even more lawlessness, so now present your members as slaves to righteousness, leading to sanctification. When you were slaves of sin, you were free in regard to righteousness. So what fruit did you then gain from the things of which you now are ashamed? The end of those things is death. But now that you have been freed from sin and enslaved to Allah, the fruit you have leads to sanctification, and the end is eternal life. For the wages of sin is death, but the free gift of Yahweh is eternal life, and Hamashiach Yehoshua, our Lord.
All right. So we see here that you have to just, and it's kind of ironic that we went into such a big spill about slavery, and then we end up in Romans talking about you being a slave into righteousness. But the word slavery and slave has been given a bad name, right? Just because of our own personal experience. In other words, if you hear about, for example, let's give you an example. If you hear about, oh yeah, we were slaves in West Africa, like if you read the brother's book, the interesting narrative of Gustave Vassa also known as his given name, Olaudah Equiano, all right, from Benin, which was an Igbo brother. When he wrote in his book, he said that he was a slave in Africa under Africans that were different than him. All right. If you read that by itself, you'll think about, oh, poor thing, he was getting beat, and they were peeling his skin back, and they were hitting him with that whip, and they were starving him, but he tells you that in his book, he tells you that the slavery that he experienced in West Africa was everybody was doing the work together, the masters and the slaves. Everybody was eating the same food, the masters and the slaves. Everybody was doing the working the same, the masters and the slaves. And he said the only difference was they would eat separately. But they had the same off days. They had the same amount of work they were doing. So that was the main difference. It was still so-called, but nonetheless, that would be considered slavery. But the so-called white man, he's the one that took it in him. Well, them Arabs, boy. That's why you all don't, you really cannot understand the history of the Arabs. Because our history of our interaction with the Arabs is far more brutal than our interaction with any so-called white Jew. Remember, you got two categories of white Jews. You got the secular ones and you got the religious ones. The secular ones just got a lot of power. A lot of them did own slave ships and did the insurance for slave ships, in the 15, 16, 1900s, but a lot of them were black as well as white, especially dealing with Spain and Portugal. They were black and white. All right. But Equiano, Gustavo Vassa, he said when he was a slave in West Africa, it was nothing compared to what he experienced in America. Because everybody was working together. It's like you, in slavery, in the biblical sense, should be looked upon more as like a work contract that you can't get out of. Because that's what it was like for him. That's how he describes it. Like, he was working, but he just couldn't leave and go on his own. He couldn't just leave and go someplace and never come back. And that was the difference between being a slave and being free. And now when you look at the Americas, when you look at the people from the tribe of Judah, the so-called Black Americans that escaped and went into Florida to the Seminoles, aka the Mikosuki, some of those left and went into Mexico, into a town called Nacimiento de los Negros in the state of Coahuila, Mexico. And they have a town down there where some of the Seminoles, so-called Seminoles and blacks escaped people, went into Florida, then they left from there under leadership of a brother named John Horse. They left there and went to the Texas-Mexico border. Okay, so this is the point that I'm getting at. If you went down with them, and this happened in most Native American or African cultures, once you became a prisoner of war, or you were exchanged, all right? And you can also see it inside the series Outlander. It kind of goes into it a little bit. What happened was you became a slave under that in their system, but guess what? You could own a gun. You could get married. You could work. As long as you did what you were supposed to do in your own family structure, you could do all the things that everybody else could do, including owning a gun. So you can see now how that form of bondage and captivity is vastly different than the one that we experienced under the so-called white man. Khan? It's a lot different. All right. So when we talk about being a servant unto righteousness, we're talking about you serving in righteousness, much like a father would do something to serve the children, or vice versa, or the wife or husband a wife. you know, or grandparent toward the, toward the children, or the children toward the grandparent. So being a servant of righteousness means that you're just gonna do the right thing with all your heart, soul, and might, which is the first greatest commandment. Love Yahweh with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. All right. With that said, we'll flip over to the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 24 to 27. Matthew 7:24. To 27. It says, everyone then who hears these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on a rock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house. But it did not fall because it had been founded on rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. All right, there has everything is about slavery today for some reason. Maybe I'm on my civil rights kick for some, I don't know. But for all of our experiences and histories globally, let me put it like this. Okay, pay attention, everybody. Look at me. Let me see your eyes. Of all the places, and you raise your hand if you think you know the answer. And if I say the right answer, you put your hand down. Of all the places where slaves were brought to in the planet Earth from Africa, and including Africa, what's the one place that you think that all of those oppressed Israelites, people, slaves, whatever nation from around the world want to, are trying to, and are coming to right now on the planet Earth? Raise your hand, you know the answer. Think you know the answer. Okay. First up is, put your hands up high so I can see them. Let's first up, all the slaves that were scattered around the earth, they all want to go back to Israel. They all trying to get back to Israel. No, that's not it. They all trying to get to Nigeria. They all want to go to Puerto Vallarta, right? Maybe all want to go to Cancun? Cuba? America. They all want to go to America. Okay, now, let's review this thing. What did Nat Turner use as his inspiration to go to war against his oppressors? The Bible. Right? Black Wall Street. The Bible. Civil rights movement. The Bible. It's not that people weren't struggling around the earth. It's just that only one of them, one group of people were calling upon specifically the God of Israel, making up songs specifically comparing themselves to the children of Israel. Tell me if I'm wrong. Swing low, sweet chariot, go down Moses, Ezekiel saw the wheel. All these songs that Black Americans made coming out of captivity and slavery and in slavery fueled the fires and the flames of uprising against the white American power structure. As a result of that struggle, as a result of that uprising, what happened? Chinese start to come, Arabs start to come, all right? People from India start to come, Poland starts to come, and then the Mexicans start to come, Jamaicans start to come, Haitians start to come, Nigerians start to come. And sadly, ain't near one of them giving you an invitation to come where they at. How grimy and dirty is that? Ain't near one of them giving none of us an invitation. None of these governments that the people help get free ever say, hey, y'all, we appreciate what y'all did over there. Y'all can come over here and get you some citizenship. Actually, one of them did. I take that back. Well, a couple of them. Let me. There's some exceptions. Some exceptions is in Haiti. Some people left and went over to Haiti, and in Samana, Dominican Republic. There's a Black American community that's been in Dominican Republic for over 150 years. It's called Samana. They still speak English there too, English and Spanish Creole mix. And some of the Israelites left and went over into, I think some may went to Cuba also. A lot of them go to Cuba. All right. So my point is that what Judah did in America is an inspiration and an expectation that all the other tribes expect to be able to get a piece of that pie. Right? They expect to get a piece of that pie. Why? Because the tribe of Judah and the Black Americans are the only ones that built their struggle for freedom on the stone. Everybody else built on sand. Because our people did not struggle, Most High bless them, or God bless them as they say, our people didn't struggle to get free in Saudi Arabia, in Oman, in Dubai, where everybody wants to go. Dubai got slavery going on right now, as we speak. Matter of fact, I know people that were slaves in Dubai. Well, let's not say slaves. They just had their passport taken and couldn't leave when they wanted to leave. I don't know what you would call that, but that's what they were. All right. Now, I know brothers also in Dubai right now that can walk around. They didn't go with those types of work contracts. All right. One is an Israelite that looks black, and the other one is an Israelite that looks Indian, like Hindu type Indian. But they both had different type of experiences over there. The one that looked like us was like, I'm gonna go over there. No, I don't have no, I'm gonna get a job when I get there. I'm not signing no contract to work for you. I'm gonna go there first. We're gonna talk face to face. So he went over there. A couple of them actually did. And then I know one brother been working over there for I don't know how long, but enough. He been working over there for years, driving trucks and stuff. But then he's in Saudi Arabia, which is kind of a different landscape of civil liberties, if you want to call it that. But nonetheless, my point is this, that Hamashiach tells us that you have to build your house on a rock. You can't build your house on the sand. And the evidence that the tribe of Judah, black people in America, built their desire for freedom on a righteous foundation is demonstrated by the fact that everybody wants to benefit from the struggle that they undertook in the Americas. Everybody. And everybody is benefiting from it, like literally the whole world. Because do you think that an Arab could just go to North Carolina or Alabama in the 1700s and open up a store? A brown Arab or a person from India could open up a 7-Eleven in Charleston, South Carolina? No, they couldn't do that. They could not do it. That was a very bad time. But because Judah built that foundation on a rock, everybody is benefiting from what the tribe of Judah did in America, which shows their ability, their spiritual aptitude for leadership, even being one of the most oppressed people on the planet, probably second only to what was going on in Brazil. Brazil had a horrible experience also. All right. But Haiti got free, but nobody was trying to run to Haiti. It's what Judah did in America, and that's why the tide turned from our rights to, hey, everybody can have these rights now. Everybody can have quote unquote civil rights, even though it's not to the extent that it should be, but it's still giving the appearance of it. All right? Because why do you think nobody's leaving their countries trying to get into a Turkey or a Sudan or a Russia? Even though the government of South Georgia, Russia right now, all right, tells you, hey, you can come to our country right now, no visa, you don't gotta pay us nothing, you can start your business, we'll help you, no problem at all. Just come on, most countries. But everybody's like, nah, I'm straight. I'd rather go to the border every 6 months. I'd rather get my stamp every 6 months. But this is what they're doing. Because everybody wants to be where Judah is. When you're traveling these highways, you understand? It was Native American people and black people that paved and carved out the roads that you travel in America. When you're in America, when you're in Cleveland on Euclid Avenue, all right? When you're in Columbus on Broad Street, when you're in Cincinnati on Race, all right? When you're in Dayton on Main Street, these are all ancient paths and roads that black people and Native American people carved out and solidified in the American system. So everybody is literally walking on the path that you created. All right. And then want to talk about the White House. Who do you think built the White House? Who do you think built the building? Who laid that foundation? You think it was free? You think it was free skilled white men? No, it was enslaved, skilled black men. And that's why you can never detach Benjamin Banneker from what happened in D.C. when they were laying the foundation and building D.C. And please don't start the whole Tartarian and the buildings were already there and all this and that. No Native American culture has them records. All right, of 60-foot brick and stone building. Now, we had mounds, we did have buildings, but not to that extent. All right. So, we did all of that. Puts hand down, raises hand. I don't care what part y'all. Thanks for your participation. So Judah made everything happen. So they built the White House. When you look across the river, the Potomac River, and you see Mount Vernon, all right, and you see where George Washington had a house and Thomas Jefferson had a house, we built those houses. Right, the layout for DC, we did all of that. South Capitol Street, Alabama Avenue, Minnesota Avenue, Branch Avenue, we did all of that. We built the whole infrastructure for America with a lot of help from our fellow oppressees, different type of oppression, the Chinese. Because they were instrumental, with the railroads and stuff. But nonetheless, you have to build your foundation on stone. And that's why we're not succeeding as a people. Because you got stone here, rock here, stone here, rock here. What should we do? Well, in every new cause, what's the guy named George Soros, right? With the Black Lives Matter, George Soros, which the irony of it is that Black Lives Matter was founded or what do you call it? Projected and pushed by a leadership that quite literally was against Black lives. It was a black lesbian that had a white girlfriend. What kind of black life you making? What kind of black life are you making? And even though we saying black, we know that this again is part of the whole social construct to divide, because these people here, where we are, Some of them lighter than you, some of them a large number of darker than you, right? Darker than you. Darker than you're darker than all, you're darker than me. So when you say Black Lives Matter, what people are really saying is the tribe of Judah matters. And I wrote something about this on my Facebook post a few days ago. Okay. When you think, okay, just blurt it out and think who you think about when I say this word I'm about to say. Anti-Semitism. Okay, he said Hitler. Okay, good. Okay, Hitler and who? Hitler and who? Who else? Was it Hitler? Was he just a cartoon character by himself? Who's Nazis? Hitler, Nazis, and Jews. But you should think. You should think King Leopold. You should think the Congo, because far more Semitic people were murdered in the Congo, right, than were murdered, estimates or actual numbers, by Hitler. You're talking about 35 million people compared to 6 million. Leopold compared to Hitler, all right, there's no comparison. But see, they hide behind calling it African or black when it's not. It's literally anti-Semitism. But the white people who call themselves Jews have made the world think that they're the only Semites. What does a Semite mean? That means a person that comes from the family of Shem. All right? What Hamas is doing to Israel is anti-Semitism. And what Israel is doing to Palestine is anti-Semitism. What happened to us in slavery was anti-Semitism. What Ukraine is doing with Russia is anti-Semitism. You see, now it's just a phrase, because all these people are Semites. When the Britain went into India, it was anti-Semitism, because the Indians are Semites also. They come from the oldest son of Shem. They come from the oldest son of Shem, which was Elam. And if you don't believe me, you think I'm blowing smoke in your nostril? Type in the word Elam, E-L-A-M, and type in Tamil, T-A-M-I-L. And see what ChatGPT or what any LLM or what Google or Copilot tells you. And they're going to tell you, oh, Elam is a name that the Tamil people of southern India and Sri Lanka call themselves as being one of their primary ancestors, Elam. Now, they're not going to go into Shem and all of that, but they're going to at least say, this is why they call themselves Elam. It's something right now. So I'm not telling you something that I think or feel. I'm telling you something coming from them, all right, that they say about themselves. They say, we are Elam. So that's anti-Semitism, because that's the firstborn son of Shem. The Kurdish people, well, we can say Kurds, not necessarily Kurds, but a lot of the Kurdish people are Semites. Now, some of the Kurds from Ashur, which is the Assyrian Empire. But why label it? Because if you're going into Africa, you're doing stuff that's anti-Hamitic. If you're going into the Pacific, you're doing stuff that's anti-Japhetic. Why are they labeling these things? And why are you creating false labels? You see what I'm saying? Because the world knew, and it's all about propaganda. Because you can get a people that had a few bad things happen to them for a few years, of history, and say, hey, you're being wrong to me, I'm a Semite. And people saying, hey, you're going to jail, you're being anti-Semitic. But then you have another group of people that say, hey, I'm Semite, and I've been suffering for 500 years. You're a racist. You're not a Semite. Bro, like, you literally went from sea to shining sea, rape, robbing, murdering, pillaging, and enslaving bringing people across the oceans, and they give a pass because, oh, they're not Semites, but they really are. But then you got the people that's controlling mines, controlling diamond and gold production and excavation and export into Europe, that literally created a tobacco industry that still thrives to this day, funded it, and they say, you know, hey, you're anti-Semitic. Oh yeah, you're anti-Semitic, you're wrong, we're gonna cancel you. That's not how it's supposed to work. But because you are the children of Israel, they can get away with oppressing you. Because they say, hey, we're not doing nothing wrong. They turned away from their God, so they get what they deserve. That's what they say. That's what they say about us. All right? So Hamashiach tells us, build on the sand and your house will be destroyed. Build on the rock and your house will be straight, secure, and safe. Okay? And let me put it to you like this also. When you work within the confines of an established system and you have peripheral things happening to support what you're doing in that center of those rules, then you can succeed. You can succeed. In other words, if you're talking about, hey, I'm a sovereign, I registered my own car with my plate into my trust, and I have the allodium deed to my house that I got a mortgage from. And if you don't like that, I'm gonna give me a CPN credit profile number, and that's really gonna show you. Lock him up. And we got a friend named Naquan, brother from Jamaica, and he went in the court talking all the sovereign stuff. Hey, we're sovereign and you can't do this to us, and we're supposed to be a sovereign. He was like, bro, you know what? I'm not even gonna argue with you. It don't matter if you're right or wrong. And most likely, I mean, and you're right. But you ain't got an army to back you up. So it's gonna go by the rules that we want to give right now. He told him, he said, you're right. And when Nathaniel got locked up in Columbus over some sovereign type stuff, he was right. He was literally right according to the letter of the law. But the judge still said, okay, you're right, whatever, but I'm gonna still put you in jail. And put you in jail. He stood in jail, came out, time served. Didn't break no laws. But if you say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna get my license. I'm gonna get my insurance. I'm gonna register my car with you. And I'm gonna do medical deliveries. I'm gonna do some Amazon Prime, Amazon type deliveries. I'm gonna do medical goods delivery. I'm gonna get me a Toro, I'm gonna get me an Uber business, and have people working for me. Now they say, okay, this is a good guy. You can still think and feel whatever you want to think and feel about this Bible, about the book, and be doing it. But if you're working outside the spectrum of their reality, your reality don't exist for them. But your reality can coexist, but you can't make it one or the other, and you don't make it one or the other. Because all these people screaming sovereign, they ain't got no sovereign gold. Are they showing their sovereign papers when they go to a car dealership? Or we're working with fiat cash. It's not real. And they're 100% correct. That paper money has no value. It's a note. It's supposed to be represented for the cash, for the metal value of that dollar at any given time, redeem it. I got $500 cash, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now give me $500 worth of gold. You're supposed to be able to do that, and you can do it. Most people don't because everybody's not doing it. It's an inconvenient system. That's what the Bible talks about, what? Shekels. 20 shekels. What is shekel? Shekel is a weight measurement. 50 shekels. I think it's like 0.25 or like 0.4 of an ounce or something like that. But it's a measurement system. But the people that control us say, hey, use this paper money and we'll exchange this paper money. and that's the system. So they built on a thin, they built that. And you can still take those resources and build what you want to build on the sand, like how Mashiach talks about. And when the winds come and the rains come, it won't fall. But the sad part about it is that everything you physically build in America will be destroyed. Everything. Your house, your car, your businesses, your buildings, your sidewalks, your roads, your gardens, it's all going to be burnt up. And that's going to be from Revelations chapter 17 and 18. When the 10 nations of the European Economic Community launch attacks against the United States of America. That's when it's all going to be destroyed. And in that same time period, Isaiah chapter 20, we'll be in the wilderness. We'll be in the wilderness. So we don't really got too much to worry about. All right, so next is going to be John chapter 6, verse 36 through 40. John 6, 36 through 40. And it says, But I say to you that you have seen me, and yet do not believe. Everything that the Father gives me will come to you, and anyone who comes to me, I will never drive away. For I have come down from Hashemayim, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I should lose nothing of all that he has given me, but raise it up on the last day. This is indeed the will of my Father, that all who see the Son and believe in him may have eternal life, and I will raise them up on the last day. That raise up on the last day is talking about the resurrection of your physical body being restored and regenerated. All right. When the resurrection happens of the righteous, if we believe in Hamashiach, which means obedience to the Torah and obedience and respect of the parts of the Torah that talk about his arrival and his mission, as we see in the book of Genesis and Exodus and Deuteronomy. It's an integrated part of the Torah, the mission of the Mashiach, and how he was going to be the sacrifice for our sins to pay that price. And if you look at it from a universal, if you look at it from a religious, Eurocentric point, you won't really get it. But if you look at it in the context of just the universe and the balancing of the universe and the centrality of focused energy in the universe, then you can understand it a little better. In all systems of belief, there is a process of atonement that people must undertake in all systems. And that process of atonement usually is not focused on you, but something external. You understand? For example, when you're talking about Yoruba, or you're following after the Ifa, or the Yoruba system, it's a goat, it's an animal, it's a chicken. But the Torah says, well, the Torah commentary says these things were never meant to take away the sins of the people. It was only meant to hold over until the real sacrifice came. Because in the Yoruba and the Ifa system, even inside of the Vedic systems of Hinduism, and pardon me for talking about these different religions, but it's very essential. Because in all of these religions, all right, When you're dealing with levels of Buddhism and Hinduism, you're dealing with the culmination of the expression of the deity being manifested to you, okay? And Buddha or Hinduism and Buddhism is manifested as a what? As an avatar, which is the physical embodiment of this God principle. When you're dealing with it from the level of Islam, is manifested as what? As the Mahdi. When you're dealing with the system of the Ifa, or the Santeria, or the Yoruba religion, what you would call like a voodoo type of religion, is manifested by like the padrino or the madrina, or the spirit possesses that person through rhythm, music, and dance. It's possessed through that person, and that person starts to speak. So all of them have the same thing. But now because Christ, Hamashiach, has been given a bad name by the white man, you will reject that concept. But that concept is present and accepted in every other path, whether it's Islam, whether it's Hinduism, Buddhism, whether it's Yoruba, it's accepted. But because they've given Hamashiach a bad name, he didn't say nothing that was bad or stupid or nonsensical. But because he was not even him, the bootleg Hamashiach, the white guy, the Caesar Borgia, he became the poster child for oppression without resistance. Not the black one, the white one, the fake one, not even the real one. The guy don't exist. His character and what he did doesn't exist. His relationship to us is non-existent. It's non-existent. When you read about, you couldn't stand up against the Roman government. It was impossible. But we stood up against the Greek government. That was possible. And we beat. And we had divine intervention of the Most High, helping us to win this battle. All right? Helping us to win all of those battles that we waged, that we fought. So if you believe in this avatar, if you believe in the Dalai Lama, and you're into that brand of Buddhism, you're cool, you're safe, because you believe in the Dalai Lama. But the Dalai Lama is supposed to be a manifestation of the avatar that Buddhism teaches. That's what he's supposed to be. But when people look at the Dalai Lama, they don't say, "Oh, this is a false religion. This is the Dalai Lama." They say, "Oh, it's the Dalai Lama. It's cool." That's what they feel and think. But when you put that same focus, energy, respect to where it should be going into Hamashiach, now people may look at you kind of wrong or strange or funny. Why? Because they don't know the real Mashiach. They know the whitewashed, fake version of our Messiah, our brother. They don't know the real one. They don't know the real one. Like Shalom, Charashallah. They don't know the real one. They don't know him. So you can't really blame them because they don't know. They never studied. They never looked at these things, thoroughly and compared to what it says to what it actually is. Because Hamashiach never said, "Oh, we're not going to go to war. I'm not going to beat nobody up. I'm not going to spill no blood." He just said, "Not now. Not now. Not now." But when you read in the book of Revelation, chapter 19, now you see the blood, right? You see blood over there. Blood. You want bloodshed in war? You really don't. You really don't. All right? You really don't want to pay the price that it takes to have a human-based revolution. Nobody wants to pay that price. We want to talk about it. Meanwhile, we're basking, literally basking in the luxury of American capitalism. Literally. And that's what's kind of jacked our people up. We are a communist, socialist people living within a capitalist society. Our cultures that we come from, whether you're talking about Arabia or whether you're talking about Africa, those cultures are not capitalist democratic societies. Those societies are patriarchal and how you call it, like they have their hierarchies in society. America has no society hierarchies. There's no grassroots level of supervision, management, control, and assistance in the American system of government. So they take these tribal governments that we come from and they try to superimpose their capitalist system, which gives you no power over your community, family, and then they say, well, you got to answer to this voted official. Voting almost popular. That's what voting means. I'm popular. I'm the popular guy, so vote for me. I'll set you free. All right, but we thrived outside of the capitalist system for hundreds of years on a paternal, then went to maternal based system. Not through what politicians were doing. And that's the only type of system that's going to give our people room to breathe. We drown in anything else. Because I don't know you. You're my representative of what? Where? Are you the one responsible for me having all these potholes here? Now take that and give the resources to an actual village where you live at. How good are those roads going to look now? How good are those schools going to be now? How clean are those yards going to be now? But to take the power of governance from the people and to put it in a face that they don't know and can't see, they don't care anymore. They don't care anymore. Here they have the colonias. They have the colonias. The colonias are the ones, they make sure, they had signs up, you're going to be fined $250 if you come through here speeding. Or if you are a young couple found walking through here at night. Or if you go across this chain at night, you don't live back here, you're going to be fined. That's what they do. And they try to say neighborhood watch in a lot of these different cities, but it's not the same because it's a disconnected power structure. Again, our system that we come from is a system at its foundation, which is communal and social. We have a socialist system. The widows, the orphans, the strangers, the less fortunate, you got to make sure you give them food. The mother whose husband died, the child whose father died, you must make sure that they always have food. You must love your neighbor as you love yourself. Is that American law? That's a socialist law. You're being forced by demand to show somebody the same love that you show yourself. Are you or me gonna go hungry if we really believe and apply that principle? Not exploitatively, but sincerely as it's needed, right? The communist system says what? We all own this. What do they call a communist system now? In this country, Mexico, what do they call it? There's a word for it. There's a word for it. And people are afraid of it because you can have a legal guarantee, but it may not work as good as you expect it to if you don't know the details about it. They call it the ejidal system, right? You know what they call it? The ejidal system. You own that land, but we own it together with you. You're an element in this society. And you got to go and trim these bushes. You got to teach the community something. You have to make sure the roads are clean. You got to do your service for a week, 2 weeks out the year. You got to do daily service to our community. Or you got to pay this money so